The antique wine cabinet sat innocuously among the cluttered estate sale items, but Detective Sarah Chen should have walked away the moment she saw it, should have listened to the elderly woman's trembling warnings, should have noticed how every other potential buyer quickly backed away after touching its ornate wooden surface, but she didn't. "The purchase, please," the frail voice of Mrs. Goldstein cracked as Sarah examined the beautiful cabinet. Don't take that one. It belonged to my grandmother. She made me promise to never sell it." Sarah ran her fingers along the intricate Hebrew inscriptions carved into the dark wood. The craftsmanship was exquisite, definitely worth more than the $50 asking price. "Why are you selling it then?" she asked, not looking up from the mysterious symbols. Mrs. Goldstein's eyes filled with tears. Because I'm dying, and I won't take it with me. But whoever buys it," her voice dropped to a whisper, "they need to know what they're getting." "What do you mean?" "My grandmother called it a Dybbuk Box. She said it contained something that should never be released." The old woman's hands shook violently. "Strange things happened when it was in our house. Terrible things, the smell of jasmine flowers mixed with rotting flesh, whispers in the night, shadows that moved on their own." Sarah almost laughed, almost, but something in the old woman's eyes, pure, unadulterated terror, made her hesitate. "I'm sorry, but I don't believe in—" "20 years ago," Mrs. Goldstein interrupted, "my son tried to open it. That same night, he fell down the stairs, broke his neck." Her voice cracked. "The doctors said it was impossible, said the angle of the break meant he'd have to fall upward." A chill ran down Sarah's spine, but her practical mind dismissed it. Grief made people imagine connections that weren't there. "I'll take good care of it," she said, handing over the money. Mrs. Goldstein's face went pale. "God help you," she whispered. "God help us all." The first night, Sarah's Victorian house had always been her sanctuary. Built in 1887, it had character, creaking floors, old pipes that groaned in the walls, and windows that rattled in the wind. She was used to its quirks, but as she carried the Dybbuk box up to her bedroom, the house seemed different, quieter, as if it were holding its breath. She placed the cabinet on her antique dresser, stepping back to admire it in the lamplight. The Hebrew inscriptions seemed to writhe in the flickering shadows, and for a moment, just a moment, she could have sworn she heard something, a soft, scratching sound, like fingernails on wood, from inside the box. "Impossible," she muttered, moving closer. The scratching stopped. Sarah pressed her ear against the cabinet's surface. Silence. Just her imagination, surely. That night she dreamed of jasmine flowers and something else. Something that made her wake up screaming at 3:17 a.m., her sheet soaked with sweat, the taste of copper pennies in her mouth. But she couldn't remember why. The Dybbuk box sat exactly where she'd left it, except now one of the small drawers was slightly ajar. Day 2. The manifestations begin. "You look terrible," her partner Detective Mike Rodriguez said as they sat in their squad car the next morning. "Rough night?" Sarah rubbed her eyes. She'd barely slept after the nightmare, and when she finally did drift off, she kept hearing that scratching sound, always at 3:17 a.m., always stopping the moment she fully woke up. "Just tired," she lied. Their radio crackled to life. "All units, we have a disturbance at 1847 Maple Street. Elderly female reporting." The dispatcher's voice wavered. "Reporting that her recently sold antique is..." Screaming, Sarah's blood turned to ice. 1847 Maple Street, Mrs. Goldstein's address. When they arrived, they found the old woman sitting on her porch, rocking back and forth, tears streaming down her face. "I can hear her," she kept repeating. "I can hear my grandmother screaming from inside that box. She's trying to warn whoever bought it, trying to tell them to run." Sarah knelt beside her. "Mrs. Goldstein, the box is at my house. There's no screaming." Not yet. The old woman grabbed Sarah's wrist with surprising strength. But there will be, tonight, when it gets hungry. Her grip tightened. My grandmother told me stories about what happened in the old country, about the rabbi who trapped something evil inside that box, something that feeds on suffering. Mike rolled his eyes, but Sarah felt that familiar chill. What kind of suffering? The kind that comes right before? Mrs. Goldstein's voice dropped to barely a whisper. Right before it takes you. The research against her better judgment, Sarah spent her lunch break at the city library, researching Dybbuk boxes. What she found made her wish she hadn't looked. According to Jewish folklore, a Dybbuk was a malicious spirit, the disembodied soul of someone who had died in a state of great sin or trauma. These spirits, unable to find peace, would sometimes attach themselves to objects or people. The boxes were meant to contain them, but if opened... Sarah's hands trembled as she read testimonial after testimonial online. People who had owned Dybbuk boxes reported similar experiences: the smell of flowers mixed with decay, scratching sounds, nightmares at exactly 3:17 a.m., and always the gradual degradation of their health and sanity. One post, written by a man named David Kellner, particularly chilled her. Day 12 with the box, can't sleep, can't eat. It whispers my name now, always at 3:17. My wife left yesterday, said I was changing. Maybe I am. The box wants me to open it, says it has something beautiful to show me. Something about my dead sister. I'm so tired of fighting it. Maybe tomorrow night. Maybe I'll just take a look inside. The post was dated 3 years ago. Sarah searched for any follow-up posts from David Kellner. She found his obituary instead. Cause of death: unexplained cardiac arrest. Time of death: 3:17 a.m. Day 3. The hunger awakens. Sarah called in sick to work. She hadn't slept in 48 hours, couldn't sleep, because every time she closed her eyes, she heard it. The scratching was louder now, more insistent, and underneath it, barely audible, whispering. In Hebrew. She'd researched the language online and could make out a few words. Hungry. Lonely. Open. The cabinet had moved during the night. Not much, just a few inches to the left. But Sarah was certain she hadn't touched it. And now 3 of the small drawers were partially open, as if something inside were trying to push its way out. The smell started around noon. Jasmine flowers, just like Mrs. Goldstein had described, but underneath it, something putrid, something dead and rotting. Sarah searched her entire house but couldn't find the source. The smell seemed to emanate from the air itself, growing stronger whenever she approached the Dybbuk box. By evening, she could barely function. Her reflection in the mirror looked hollow, gaunt. Dark circles ringed her eyes, and her skin had taken on a sickly pallor. She tried to eat dinner, but vomited immediately. The only thing she could keep down was water, and even that tasted like pennies. At 11 p.m., she called Mike. "Sarah, Jesus, you sound terrible. What's wrong?" "The box," she whispered, afraid to speak too loudly. It might hear her. "Something's wrong with the box. I need you to come over and..." The line went dead. Sarah looked at her phone. No signal. That was impossible. She lived in the middle of the city. But as she watched, the battery indicator dropped from 78% to 12% to dead in a matter of seconds. The lights went out. In the sudden darkness, she heard it clearly now. Not scratching, not whispering, laughing. Something inside the Dybbuk box was laughing, and the sound was like glass breaking inside her skull. The revelation, Sarah fumbled for her flashlight, hands shaking so violently she could barely hold it. The beam cut through the darkness, landing directly on the cabinet. All of the drawers were now wide open, but they were empty. No, not empty. She moved closer, despite every instinct screaming at her to run. Inside each drawer, carved into the wood, were words, Hebrew words that seemed to shift and writhe in the flashlight's beam. but she could read them now. Somehow, impossibly, she understood what they said. I am the hunger that never sleeps. I am the whisper that drives men mad. I am the shadow of every fear you've ever known. And in the largest drawer, the one in the center, I am coming for you, Sarah Chen. Her name. The thing knew her name. Behind her, footsteps, slow, deliberate, getting closer. Sarah spun around, but the hallway was empty. Yet she could still hear them, bare feet on hardwood, accompanied by a wet, dragging sound, as if something were being pulled along the floor, something heavy, something dead. The smell of jasmine and decay grew overwhelming. Sarah pressed her hand to her mouth, trying not to vomit. The footsteps stopped directly behind her. She could feel its breath on her neck. Turn around, Sarah. The voice was like wind through a cemetery. Turn around and see what you've awakened. The truth? No, Sarah whispered. No, no, no. You bought me. You brought me into your home. You fed me your fear, your sleepless nights, your growing despair. The voice circled her now, though she could see nothing. Do you know what I am, Sarah? Do you understand what you've invited in? Against her will, Sarah found herself turning. The flashlight beam wavered, casting dancing shadows on the walls, and there, standing in the doorway, was nothing, just empty space. But the shadows were wrong. They moved independently of the light, reaching toward her with fingers that weren't quite fingers. And in the center of those writhing shadows, 2 points of light that might have been eyes. I am hunger incarnate, the voice continued, and now it seemed to come from everywhere at once. I am the Dybbuk that your kind trapped centuries ago, thinking they could contain evil in a pretty wooden box, but evil finds a way. The shadow thing moved closer. Every person who owned my prison fed me a little more. Their fear, their sanity, their life force, all of it made me stronger. And now, after so many years, I'm finally strong enough to be free. Sarah tried to run, but her legs wouldn't move. The shadows had wrapped around her ankles like chains. Mrs. Goldstein's grandmother was the last to see me in my true form, the Dybbuk whispered, its voice now coming from directly beside her ear. She died screaming, but first she told me about the descendant, about the one who would come, the one whose fear would taste the sweetest. What? What descendant? Sarah managed to choke out. The laughter returned, filling the room like poison gas. You, my dear Sarah, your great-great-grandmother was Rachel Goldstein, the rabbi's daughter, the one who helped trap me in the first place. The world spun around Sarah as the truth hit her. Mrs. Goldstein wasn't a random seller. She was family, distant family, but family nonetheless. And the box had been meant for her all along. 3 generations I waited, the Dybbuk hissed. 3 generations I fed on the fear of strangers, growing stronger, biding my time. And now the bloodline has come full circle. The choice. The shadows released her suddenly, and Sarah collapsed to the floor, gasping. Above her, the Dybbuk's form began to solidify, a writhing mass of darkness and hunger, with eyes like burning coals and a mouth full of too many teeth. I offer you a choice, Sarah Chen, it said, its voice now like the sound of souls screaming. Open the box willingly, release me completely, and I will make your death quick. Sarah's mind raced. There had to be a way out. There was always a way out. And if I refuse, then I will take what I need slowly, night by night, fear by fear, until you are nothing but a hollow shell begging for the mercy of madness. Your partner will find your body eventually, but not your mind. That will stay with me forever. The flashlight flickered and died. In the complete darkness, Sarah heard the Dybbuk moving, circling her like a predator. She could feel its hunger pressing against her mind, trying to break her will. But then she remembered something Mrs. Goldstein had said. My grandmother told me stories about the rabbi who trapped something evil inside that box. If it could be trapped once. You're afraid, Sarah said suddenly. The circling stopped. You're offering me a choice because you're afraid I might find another way. Impossible, but there was uncertainty in the voice now. Sarah stood slowly, her detective training taking over. Never show weakness to a suspect. Never let them think they have all the power. The rabbi who trapped you, what was his name? Silence. What was his name? She shouted, a sound like glass breaking. Rabbi Mordecai Goldstein. But he is long dead, and his bloodline is standing right in front of you. Sarah smiled grimly in the darkness. And blood calls to blood. The confrontation, what happened next, defied everything Sarah thought she knew about the world. Words in Hebrew poured from her mouth, words she had never learned, spoken in a voice that wasn't quite her own. The Dybbuk shrieked to sound like all the damned souls in hell crying out at once. Light blazed from the empty Dybbuk box, not the warm light of lamps or candles, but something older, something holy. The shadows recoiled, and for the first time since she'd brought the cursed thing home, Sarah could see clearly. The Dybbuk wasn't beautiful or terrible in any way she could have imagined. It was simply empty. A void in the shape of something that had once been human but had surrendered its humanity so completely that only hunger remained. You cannot. It hissed, its form already beginning to waver. I am too strong. I have fed too long. Blood calls to blood, Sarah repeated, and somehow she knew it was Rabbi Goldstein's voice speaking through her, her ancestors' will, passed down through generations, finally awakening in their hour of greatest need. And my family's debt is finally paid. The light from the box grew brighter, and the Dybbuk's screams grew more desperate. Please, please, I just wanted to be human again. I just wanted to feel something other than this endless hunger. For a moment, just a moment, Sarah felt pity for the thing, but then she remembered David Kellner, found dead at 3:17 a.m. She remembered Mrs. Goldstein's son who fell upward down a flight of stairs. She remembered all the others who had suffered because of this creature's insatiable need. Then rest, she said, and meant it. Finally, rest. The Dybbuk gave one last, heartbroken wail, and then it was sucked back into the box like smoke into a vacuum. The drawers slammed shut with a sound like thunder, and the Hebrew inscriptions glowed briefly before fading back to their normal inert state. The aftermath. Sarah found herself on the floor of her bedroom as dawn broke through the windows. The Dybbuk box sat innocuously on her dresser, looking like nothing more than a beautiful antique cabinet. But she could still feel it, a presence behind the wood, trapped but not destroyed, waiting. Her phone, miraculously functional again, rang. Mike's voice was worried. "Sarah, you called me last night and then the line went dead. I tried to come over, but I got lost. Kept driving in circles for hours. Are you okay?" Sarah looked at the box. Even in the morning sunlight, she could see the faint scratches on the inside of the drawers. Scratch marks that looked suspiciously like fingernails. "I'm fine," she lied. "Just had a bad night." But she wasn't fine, and she never would be again, because now she understood the truth about the Dybbuk box. It wasn't just a prison, it was a responsibility, a burden passed down through her bloodline, from Rabbi Goldstein to his daughter Rachel to Mrs. Goldstein's family, and now to her. The creature could be contained, but it could never truly die. And someone had to guard it. Someone had to make sure it was never opened again. Someone had to bear the weight of keeping the world safe from the hunger that lived inside. The guardian, Sarah, called in sick to work for the rest of the week. She had research to do, preparations to make. The internet was full of stories about the Dybbuk box, but most of them were wrong. They treated it like a curiosity, a tourist attraction, something to be feared but not respected. They didn't understand that it was a weapon aimed at the heart of human sanity, and the only thing keeping it from firing was the will of one person, one guardian, one member of a family that had sworn an oath centuries ago to keep the darkness contained. Mrs. Goldstein died 3 days later. Natural causes, the doctor said, but Sarah knew better. The old woman had held the responsibility for over 70 years, and passing it on had finally allowed her to let go. That night, as Sarah sat beside the Dybbuk box, she heard the familiar scratching sound at exactly 3:17 a.m. But this time she wasn't afraid. This time she was ready. "I know you're in there," she whispered, "and I know you can hear me, so listen carefully." The scratching stopped. "I am Sarah Chen, great-great-granddaughter of Rachel Goldstein, daughter of Rabbi Mordecai Goldstein. I am your guardian now, your warden, your jailer." She placed her hand on the box, feeling the malevolent presence within recoil from her touch. "And as long as I draw breath, you will never, never hurt another innocent person." From inside the box came a sound like weeping. "Do you understand me?" Silence, then so faint she almost missed it. "Yes." Sarah settled back in her chair, a family heirloom she'd never realized was actually a guard post passed down from guardian to guardian. Outside her window, the city slept peacefully, never knowing how close it had come to waking up to a nightmare. But Sarah knew, and now, like her ancestors before her, she would watch and wait and guard against the hunger that lived in the beautiful wooden box, because some things were too dangerous to destroy and too evil to ever set free. The Dybbuk box sat silent on her dresser, its dark wood gleaming in the moonlight. But if you looked closely, very closely, you might notice that the Hebrew inscriptions seemed to move slightly in the shadows, and if you were very unlucky, you might hear what Sarah heard every night at 3:17 a.m., the sound of something scratching, patiently, hopefully, waiting for its next chance to feed.